What's up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club! I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And this is our special New York Comic Con edition of the show. I'm very excited about this, very excited to be here. Have you guys hit up the con at all yet?
Yes. Oh, no, the Comic-Con? No.
Oh, okay. You mean like the con?
I was running scams on people on the streets doing some 3-card Monty.
Nice. How'd that go?
Good. I lost everything. That's why I'm nude here.
Yes. And Pete, your con is you're very drunk right now.
Yeah, that's right. You know, if you skip a meal, the booze hits harder.
Hey, that's just chemistry right there.
Now, I want to mention we do a regular Tuesday night show, and at the Tuesday night show, Pete always has a Punisher shrine set up right on the side. He has Punisher slippers, a Punisher hat, a little piece of John Bernthal's skin. I think it's his chest skin.
You were not supposed to talk about that.
I wasn't supposed to. Okay, well, forget about that part. We'll edit that out of the podcast later. So we're at a different venue this time. We're at Caveat downtown. Pete, of course, you didn't take a plastic bag full of Punisher stuff and bring it down here, did you?
No, why would I do that? We're in a new
that would
venue.
be weird.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
I'll tell you what, you say definitely makes it sound like you didn't do that.
Yeah, definitely didn't do that. Thanks for bringing it up, though. I appreciate it.
No problem. He did, though. He did. I asked him what the plastic bag was, and it was
And it's hidden backstage because there was shame attached to it.
Yeah. I was feeling pretty good about it until Zelda was like, you didn't really do that, did you? I did.
I am very excited about the guests that we have on the show tonight. For those of you in the live audience, you've seen one of these folks already. He is from 30 Rock, American Splendor. He has a new special on Netflix that you can check out. It's exactly 84 minutes long.
I think it was 86. I think you said 86.
No, I think it was 84. You're very drunk. The other guest is the writer of Absolute Carnage, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Silver Surfer Black. Ladies and gentlemen, Judah Friedlander and Donny Cates.
Come on out.
Come on up. Hello. Hello.
Thank you. So
Hello.
good to have you.
Have a
Come
seat,
on
have a
down.
microphone.
Hello.
Oh, my goodness. Ooh, I just sat on a book. Okay, there we go. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Excited to have you here. Donnie, you're sitting very close to me and right here.
It's true.
First of all, I want to get one thing out of the way before we get into it. You are writing a lot of stuff now, but when we started the show, what was it, 13 years ago?
Yep, birth.
You were an intern at Marvel and used to come to the show all the time. And I can't help but think we inspired you on your journey and could take full credit for all your success.
Yeah.
We launched the ship.
Yeah. No, I was an intern at Marvel in like 2010 or so like that, and Jordan White, friend of the show,
Jordan
my first editor, was the only editor at Marvel at the time who would associate with interns, and I didn't know anyone in this city. I'm from Texas, and so he very kindly would invite me out to the show, and I used to sit yonder over there and dream about being on this stage with you handsome gentlemen.
Oh man! Well, now after the show, you can finally throw in the towel. You can finally give up.
That's right.
You've reached all of your dreams.
You actually really quick. You actually did, and I've told you this a million times. Write one of my favorite comics.
Oh my goodness!
The Throg joke.
Oh, thank you, Donnie.
Is one of the best Thor frog-based jokes I've ever read in my life.
Let's just say that's a very specific category.
It is, and
It's weird. There's only been 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah. And look no further for the best one.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that.
Don't let that compliment go to your head, or more specifically, your forehead.
Your Thor head.
All right.
Call back. Nailed it.
All right. Let's talk about all the stuff you're doing. You have a ton of titles that you are working on right now. First one, biggest one that's coming out, your first event, Absolute Carnage.
Yeah.
For those who haven't been picking it up, what is the general idea of that book? What's the pitch line for it?
Boy. So the long and short of it is real simple. Cletus Cassidy, who is Carnage, has been resurrected from the dead by a cult who worships the god of the symbiotes as a being named Null. And he's on a quest to murder every single person who has ever worn a symbiote in the Marvel U, which, if you've been reading Marvel Comics the past 30-odd years, is damn near everyone.
Yep.
And so Venom, along with this nerd named Peter Parker, are trying desperately to save everyone while Carnage is on a murderous warpath across the Marvel U. And so far, it has not been going great.
So something we were actually talking about on our last live show a little bit that I'm curious to get your take on. What is it about symbiotes? What is it about these suits, this Venom suit, that has taken over the entire Marvel Universe? What is appealing about it to you as a writer?
Everybody wears a symbiote suit at some point.
At some point. Well, I think that part of it, like the part where you want to see people wear suits, it's always fucking rad to see people in new costumes and make new toys. That part's always cool, right? The symbiote in and of itself, going back to Peter Parker wearing it right out of Secret Wars #8, and then going into the black suit, the black costume saga, and then into Eddie Brock. I think it's never been done better than with Eddie, right? I always tend to think that Venom it works best when it's a bit of a metaphor for addiction. Eddie Brock's a guy that has wavered back and forth, being a good guy and a bad guy. People ask me often, is he a good guy or a bad guy? I always say he's a guy who wakes up every single day desperately wanting to be a good guy, but he has this shadow that he wears that veers him off of his path. And if that's not addiction, I don't know what is, right? Having this kind of this dark voice in your head that strays you from the man that you want to be, right? And so I think that it's always a wonderful exercise to kind of take people down a path of either giving them everything that they've ever wanted or giving them everything that they've been afraid to become. And symbiotes are a good metaphor for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about this a bit backstage. You just finished Absolute Carnage here at New York Comic Con.
I did, yeah.
And you had some special help.
Oh my God! I went and did the Diamond Retailer breakfast this morning at 8 a.m.
Great breakfast.
Great, dude. If you can get in, open a comic book store just for the pancakes.
And the retailers cook the food themselves.
Yeah,
right?
we make them do it. Yeah, it's for us. No, I went and did that, but I didn't have anywhere to be until like 11 o'clock for my signing, and so I have so many deadlines. So I've been traveling so much, so I just went to my table before the show opened, and I sat down with my laptop, and I was like, I'm going to bang this thing out. And so many very nice people who were there, like, I guess VIP guests or something, were coming up and being very sweet. And at a certain point, my manager came over and was just like, hey, do you want to be able to just write and, like, put your headphones on? And I was like, yeah, I kind of would. He was like, I got you. And I don't know what I thought he was going to do.
Wreck some heads.
I just started punching people in the mouth.
Breakfast heads? Just
But-
like some 8 a.m.
Yeah, but long story short, what happened was I ended up finishing Absolute Carnage #5, sitting at my table, flanked by security guards.
Is there a better way to write?
It's the weirdest thing. I am not that important.
Shakespeare often had a full military outfit.
That's right. I heard
Really?
that. Yeah, I heard
You're
that they don't talk about.
yeah.
I am a classically trained actor,
Yes.
as you
True.
all know.
That's true.
So
That's
I
true.
really have studied the bard.
That, though, is leading into... You're not leaving Venom at that point.
Oh, no.
You're leading into
No.
Venom Island
Yes.
and other events. And
Yeah.
as far as I've heard the story, you sat down at the first Marvel retreat with your Venom plans and talked for like a solid hour.
Oh my
through your
God,
plans,
an
right?
hour at least. I tend to like over plan. I tend to know exactly what I'm doing for like when I get on a title that I'm very passionate about. I sit down and I plan it out for years and years and years. And you kind of work in where you think events will go and like when the story kind of evolves and blooms to a point where you need to get the Avengers and Iron Man to come in and stuff, and those are very good natural selling points. My first summit, where I had to talk about Venom, I walked through like 5 years of story, going all the way through to the end of Ryan and I's run. And Absolute Carnage kind of marks what we call the end of like Act 1.
That's early.
Yeah. So the events of issue 5 will be setting up the next huge threats and things that are coming next.
Wow. Let's move to the cosmic stuff since you're working on that side as well. You're wrapping up Guardians of the Galaxy. What was it like to take on that title? What was your mission there?
I wanted to get back to, for so long, the Guardians comic itself has kind of fallen into the shadow of the films, right? And the films are wonderful, and I love them. But the cosmic stuff and the Guardians specifically that I grew up with was brutal. When you have like epic plots on Earth, they're a little bit hinged by how big they can get just by their territory, right? In space, everything can be the biggest end of the world, like no holds barred, Jim Starlin-y, Abnett landing type of stuff. And the stuff that I liked was, Abnett and landing Guardians of the Galaxy run was Saving Private Ryan in space. It was brutal, right? Yeah. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring it down to a darker tone. I'm not. People keep on saying that issue 12 is the end of my Guardians tenure. I wouldn't get too attached to that. I've kind of been the cosmic guy. The showrunner is the title that we use. I've been kind of like facilitating and looking over all the cosmic stuff since I began on Thanos. My time overseeing the cosmic side of Marvel is just beginning. I have a new thing I'm going to be announcing tomorrow at Comic-Con that will give you will show you how much bigger my plan will get.
So think about space.
Yeah.
And think about Donny writing space. So
yeah.
Okay.
What are the options that we have there?
Well,
I'm going to say a sun.
A sun?
Uh-huh.
A new character
Like
called
just-
the sun? The sun.
The sun.
That would be
Yeah.
crazy. What a fun book.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the sun is important.
That's
Right.
That's true.
Gives life.
You guys
and
are crushing
plants.
And obviously solar energy taking over.
Yeah.
Very fun. Ego the Living Planet is a cool person.
Yeah.
I've written him
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Silver Surfer.
Well, let's talk about that because
Wait.
you're yes.
Before
what?
we move on, I just wanted to say, in Thanos, Cosmic Ghost Rider, as being the Punisher fan on the show, was amazeballs, and I just wanted to thank you for your work on that.
Well, thank you so much. It's a weird thing. Cosmic Ghost Rider is a character that me and my friend Jeff Shaw created in Thanos Wins that we never in a million years thought was gonna catch on, and now there's like. He has his own solo series and toys and Funko Pops and statues, and it's very bizarre. And
He's
weird.
sort of the new Punisher, right? He's like the
Hey, fuck you for
he's
saying
like he's like the Frank Castle everyone expects.
Yeah, he's like Punisher, but like fixed.
Yeah,
And it's like now he's
exactly.
good now.
Finally.
Yeah.
Just better.
Yeah.
It just took him going to space and aging millennia
Well, also
Yeah.
to
took him
get over
dying,
Yeah.
and then some.
Going
And also
Hell.
just being a new character named Ghost Rider in space.
and he finally got over the picnic.
There you go.
A little bit.
Yes. Let's talk about Silver Surfer Black, though,
Yeah.
for a second. I think that's the last of the things that at least you have going on for Marvel right now that we know about. You love that title, Justin.
Very much so. I feel like I've called it the Sandman for Silver Surfer.
Oh, that's really sweet.
I
Thank
feel
you.
like it just creates a mythology, and it puts him in a journey that you really feel the depth of what he's going through, and it puts him into a whole new mythological side of the Marvel universe that I feel like he hasn't been.
Oh, thank you so much. I got that book because I was actually in Dublin hanging out with a buddy, and he knows Trad, and I actually went to college with Trad at art school, and he was that good then. And we've always wanted to do a book, and we just like crossed paths in the schedule. And I was in Dublin, and Declan Shelby, who's an amazing artist, told me that Trad was free, and I was like, wait, what? And he was like,
He's out
yeah.
of his cage.
He was
He's been
like,
released from
he was like, I think he wants to do like a Silver Surfer thing. And I was like, give me 2 seconds. And I called CB, and I was like, whatever this is, I want to do it. And so since I've known Trad for like 10 years, I just called him, and I was like, what do you want to do? And he was like, I don't really. He's an artist, right? So he thinks in big set pieces and like these things, and he had this idea to kind of frame it as a knight's quest. Like every issue, he's a knight on some sort of a noble thing, right? And so we started talking about it, and so much of my work is dark, very, very dark, and not pessimistic, but very much embracing the abyss type of thing. And so I wanted to write something that was a little bit hopeful, a little bit more ascendant. And so we kind of stumbled upon this idea of light versus dark, like this noble knight fighting against darkness, and this idea of Null and his dragons would be a very good foe for a knight. And you'll get to see that play out way more in Silver Surfer Black #5. The knight thing really comes to a head. And it is, in a lot of ways, a structural inverse to my Thanos Wins series. In Thanos Wins, Thanos is shunted to the future to embrace death and to look death in the eye and see what that means. In Silver Surfer, he is shunted to the past to look at hope and birth and life. And so I've always kind of thought of Thanos Wins and Silver Surfer Black as kind of set pieces on either end.
Cool.
That's cool.
Very cool. Let's turn to Judah, since you have a lot of stuff going on as well. I do want to talk about this, If the Raindrops United, your book, which is very cool, and it only costs a penny. Is that right?
Well, it's out of print. It came out a few years ago, so I believe you can buy used copies online for a penny, and the shipping is $3.99.
Nice.
And so, how much of that do you see, Judah? And how much are you rating?
Yeah,
in
of
on
the
that?
penny.
I make $40.
Nice. Nice.
Excellent.
Economics of that, Amazon. That's how they get you.
It's amazing.
No, it's funny. We were talking about backstage. You're not. You say you're not really a comic book guy, but this is.
I'd be lying if I was.
Right.
I think it's a great art form, and there's only so many hours in the day. Like, people ask me, do you watch this TV show, that show? I'm like, there's not a current TV show I watch.
I'm the same way.
I'm just busy, but I love it, and me and my brother used to co-collect when we were kids, and
Oh, nice.
I was always a slow reader, so he would finish them, and I'm still on page 4, and then he would just sort of tell me everything that happens in them and stuff. We were really into the comic book. This is in the 70s, called Nova.
Oh,
yeah. I've written a little bit of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. There was, because back then when it first came out, it was there weren't that many of them. I think they only went up to maybe 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was always a favorite of ours. So I think it's an incredible art form. I'd just be lying if I said. I'm not a comic book expert,
Yeah. Well, I'm curious then, though, why did you want to embrace the graphic form for If the Raindrops United? Why was that important to you?
When I was a kid, I used to do my own. I always did a lot of art as a kid, and I used to do my own comic strips sometimes, political cartoons and other cartoons, usually single panel, and
nice.
So I remember I was touring a lot. And this was after 30 Rock had finished filming, and stand-up I've always been doing. I've been doing that since 1989, and so I remember I was touring a lot, and to sort of deal with anxiety, I kind of started drawing again, because when I was a kid and even throughout high school, I used to do a lot of animation, clay animation as well as drawing animation.
Oh, wow.
And so I got back into I'm traveling so much, I got back into drawing a lot, and whenever if I'm at the airport waiting or whatever, just start drawing.
Yeah.
And so then after 6 months or so, I realized, well, I think I might be forming a book here, because I had about 50 little cartoons, single panel cartoons, and I was like, So then I started pitching it around, and most people were not interested. One company was interested, and then I kind of spent like a year and a half straight just, still doing stand-up, but working on that book.
Wow, that's
kind of full-time.
Yeah.
When you were doing American Splendor, did you check out any of Harvey P. Carr's stuff? Were you into that?
So American Splendor, we filmed that in 2001. It came out we filmed it at the end of 2001. It came out in 2003. And so when I had the audition, I thought it was very interesting. And I thought it was very, and I don't mean that in a put down, because I know that can be a put down.
Yeah,
sometimes. I've been put down that way before by people.
Judah's really interesting.
Yeah. I remember I got fired off a sitcom once, and then I was actually kind of glad I got fired off of it, because they had me my character doing an old joke that's been done before.
Just the worst.
And I don't want to do that.
And you're like,
they,
can I?
And they wanted to make that my catchphrase, and they kept adding it throughout the show.
Oh, it's a bummer when they're like, that's going to be your catchphrase.
Yeah. And then,
you're going to say that 9 times.
Yeah, and I know the guy who wrote the joke, and he used to do the joke.
Man.
And then, and I remember I worked Monday, I worked Tuesday. It was one of those sitcoms where you rehearse all week and they tape it in front of an audience on a Friday night.
Yeah.
So I remember the next day I was going to tell them, it's like, we have to change his line, you know. And then they called me up that night and fired me, and I was like happy because I just couldn't go through with it. And so anyway, so when they fired me, I wanted to know, like, hey, what's your reason, you know? And she goes, well, first of all, I just want to say, I think you're a really interesting actor.
That really, it's like, thanks. Really softens the blow.
When I said I thought the comic book was very interesting, I mean it was fucking interesting. I didn't mean that as a put there.
That's really funny.
So anyways, that story's a lot longer. I don't need to get into that. But so when I got the audition, it was cool because it was, you know, I was playing a real person. You know, I was auditioning to play a real person on real comic books, and I was not aware of the comic book at the time. And so the first thing I did was I went to St. Mark's Comics.
Oh yeah.
No longer
Back in
open.
the day, I know.
R.I.P.
Sad when it
Yeah.
ended.
I think earlier this year. I think. So I went there and I looked through. They had I think a current issue, and then they had a couple of anthology books, and so I bought some of the stuff, and then I didn't have that much money, so I just looked through some of the other books to really get the flavor for it, you know. And it was like, you know, his book was sort of like the opposite of what you would think of as a normal comic book at the time, where it was, you know, kind of a superhero, but just of, you know, instead of all these great things, that comic book was about the things you would cut out of a normal.
It's like
story,
if Clark Kent
you know?
took off his glasses and became sad.
It's just like if it was. Yeah, if it was just Clark Kent typing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, and just waiting.
Just the news.
At regular speed.
And the you know, his typewriter, the ribbon got twisted, and nothing else happened. And you know, so it was very good. So I thought it was a really unique and interesting take. And then I played Toby Radloff in that, who bills himself as the genuine nerd.
Yeah.
And he was a real guy and a real nerd. And, you know, the definition of nerd, as you know, has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah,
you
man.
That's very cool.
It was one of those things where it went from being like, you know, from personal experience, like getting beat up for being a nerd, to now it's like cool to be a nerd.
And that was earlier on tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You beat the shit out of a bunch of jokes.
Fuck you, Pete.
You're totally right. So if you're a certain age, if you're probably, I don't know, 40 or over, your definition that you originally knew the word nerd from is completely different than what it is today.
Yeah.
And so Toby's a real nerd. You know, he was not the modern day nerd. You know, he's an original nerd. And so it was. So I wound up getting the part, and Toby acted in several straight-to-video movies. There was Killer Nerd, Bride of Killer Nerd, and another one called Townies.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
He filmed them all. Wayne Allen Harold is the writer-director of them.
Oh, shit.
Friend of Toby's. They're all these low-budget, kind of comedy, kind of horror exploitation movies made in Cleveland.
Wow.
And they're really cool. And for years, I collected rare VHS. So I actually found some of Toby's movies that the directors and producers hadn't seen. So I was able to watch Toby and kind of, you know, learn his mannerisms.
That's
and
wild.
stuff
So
like
you
that.
had access to the character you were playing that no one else.
Yeah,
it was like a perfect situation.
Yeah, they had some stuff, but I got some videos that they had not seen.
Oh, that's
and then
wild.
on my second audition, or maybe after my first audition, they actually gave me some clips of Toby from a local Cleveland cable access show to study him.
They were
on
like,
that.
beat that.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, buckle up, dude. I got
No, it was
some.
good. It was really helpful. And then the night before filming, I met Toby, and he gave me his full life story.
Wow.
And so, and that was crucial because, you know, Toby, you know, he talked about, you know, how horribly he was treated by so many people and getting beat up and all these things. And that, you know, that really helped me play him, psychologically to have that, within me to play him. So not just the physicality.
Yeah, I would say one of my favorite parts of the movie is when the camera just pans over from the actors to the real people, and it really just makes
it kind of makes the movie.
Yeah, it totally does.
Because Toby is such an over-the-top guy.
Yeah.
And talks so loudly.
And it justifies what you've been doing.
People, right. Some people, when they see me in it, they're like, this guy's really overdoing it.
Yeah, you look over and he's like, oh my, he's nailing it.
Cut to Toby.
Yeah. And then they put in the real Toby, and they're like, oh, okay.
Judah's killing it.
Yeah. It's such a subtle performance.
Because most people don't know I'm in the movie because I don't look like me. I don't.
Yeah, it's true.
And
it's a completely different look.
Yeah,
chameleon.
I'm sort of trying to relaunch my acting career a little bit, and like sometimes I'll say to an agent or somebody that was in that movie, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're great in that." I'm like, "Can you describe a scene that was in?" And they can't because they may remember the movie, but they don't know that was me doing it. Yeah. So it's very weird. But
but it's also kind of a compliment to you.
What's that?
It's also kind of a compliment.
Yeah. No, I'll take it. But it was a really cool experience making that.
I also love the idea that they were like, we need to cast a nerd for this role, and they're like, should we go with a guy who has videotapes that we don't have of the guy who's playing? It's like, I feel like he might be the nerd we need.
Yeah. Here's a funny story. One time. I haven't seen Toby in a few years, but when I do shows in Cleveland, I'll often hit up Toby and we'll meet up, and he'll come out to a show. And so one time, we have some hobbies that are similar. Like I like going to junk sales and thrift shops. Yeah. Like real thrift shops where it's like the size of a Walmart and everything's like $1 to $5.
Yeah, and it's basically garbage.
Yeah. So I went
Dirt Mall. I love Dirt Mall.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I love Dirt Mall.
I haven't heard that term. That's great.
Yeah.
Dirt Mall. That's awesome. One of them was a dirt mall. It was an outdoor junk sale. It was
the best. Yeah.
And then Toby took me to a rummage sale that his church was having, and it might have been. I can't remember if it was a full-time little thrift shop or if it was just a big sale they were having. So I go there, and there was a lot of good stuff. And I got a couple cool things. I got a Beavis and Butthead VHS, which contained stuff that was not released on DVD. So that was cool. And then I got one of these audio cassette players that had 2 headphone jacks so that 2 people... It was like one of those things from an elementary educational school. Yeah. And so I'm checking out, and I think each thing was $1. And I got something else, too. I can't remember what it was. But those 2 items were items that Toby donated to the church.
No way. That's amazing.
It's like, what are the odds?
Very
honest. It's like we have the same fucking taste. It's like...
That's great.
That's so good.
So weird.
It's beautiful. And he's just standing next to you like, got you, dude.
Yeah, bro.
He's like, oh, yeah, those are mine. I donated those.
I just took you for $2, kid. You just got played.
Well, it was a very interesting performance. Let's move on anytime. Let's move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because I come out to you guys. It's your audience questions.
Yes.
Woo! And for that, couple of things about that. All you have to do is ask a question either for our guests or generally for our panel about absolutely anything. You're all going to get a little Comic Book Club prize pack with a bumper sticker, a magnet, and a button. But we're also going to give away some Blu-ray sets to the absolute best questions. We're going to have these folks determine what they are. So make your questions good. That's all I'm saying.
No fucking around.
Yeah, no
Don't
fucking
embarrass
around,
us,
you
guys.
guys. I saw this hand.
Blu-rays on the line, which is like... It's like before the internet, that's what we watched.
What's your name? What's your question?
My name is Kevin, and you talked some about formative comics that you read as a kid. What are some other titles, and they could be comics or they could be other media, that you think were so formative as a kid that have informed what you do as an adult?
Ooh. Formative.
Yeah, for me, I my dad taught me how to read with comics. So like my brother was like super into baseball cards, and the baseball card shop had comics in it, right? And so I was this little kid, and I wanted all these shiny, bright, colorful things, and my dad was like, I'll buy them for you if you learn how to read. And I was probably about like 13. the time.
Yeah.
That joke never fucking works. No, I was probably like 4, right? It was first like Green Lantern and Spider-Man, and then honestly, Venom. It was a big deal for me.
So that was one of the first comics you ever read?
Yeah.
So
like when I took
Full
over,
circle, man. That's
for real, man. Like when I took over Venom, I took him over on his 30th anniversary, and I'm 35, and I was there for the beginning of it, right?
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, I've read every issue of Venom ever since then, and actually, when I went to art school, which is where I met Trad Moore and Jeff Shaw and all these guys that I would go on to work with, I got my scholarship as a sculptor with sculptures of Venom that I did.
Wait, so you came in as a sculptor?
Yeah, I was a sculptor and an illustrator. I actually hadn't written a word my entire life until 2010.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's when you learned to read. Finally.
Yeah, that's when I finally cracked it. As far as like formative books that like really got me into like kind of captured my imagination and wanted me to do this, or made me want to do this. Bendis's Powers was huge for me. There's a way to say this that's not sound like I'm being a dick, and I haven't found it yet. So let me just try this.
Take it up.
Yeah.
I always think about, because there's so many people my age who cite Powers as an inspiration of doing this, and I always think of them as like early punk rock, where like a bunch of people in the crowd saw that and they were like, well, fuck, that counts. I can do that. Right?
Yeah,
and obviously, like, no one can do what Brian does, but there was, like, Powers came out, and it was just, like, people talking about comics, and, like, people, like, standing around just having conversations, and I had never seen that. I had never, I grew up as, like, an Image kid in, like, the 90s and stuff, and it was all just, like, this big, it was very artist-focused, right?
Yeah.
And so I grew up wanting to be an artist, and then I read Bendis's stuff, and I was like, oh, my God, like, it's just, like, natural people talking.
I'll just do the words, actually.
That sounds way easier.
It is funny you say that, because back especially when the Image launched, it was like, this seems so hard to do.
It was
like you have to either be a writer and an artist, or be able to write a splash page in a way,
right?
Like it's more of an impenetrable.
It was you were looking at masters at the height of their craft, right?
Right.
And then like Vertigo at the same time, right? People want to talk a lot of shit about the 90s, but like the 90s were also the British invasion was also then too, right? There was also like Ellis and Ennis and Gaiman and Moore and all these guys were just coming over through the Vertigo line. And so you had like all the greatest writers doing Vertigo stuff, and you had all the greatest artists doing Image stuff. It was such an inspirational time. And then fucking Wildstorm hit, and it was all those writers and all those artists, and it was the best comic books ever fucking made.
Yo, I remember that summer when those came out, my brother and I grew up in the country. There wasn't a comic book store near us, way upstate New York. So we ordered our comics, and they were mailed to us. Yeah. And so we thought that when they came out, that's when they were mailed to us. It's not how it worked. It was like months later.
Oh, yeah.
So every day we would literally run to the mailbox, open it, and be like, fuck! Nuts! And just like that level of desperation for these things was what, that's my formative experience, is not having comics.
Judah, do you have any sort of, I know you mentioned Nova earlier, but do you have any sort of formative experience?
As far as my book goes, these weren't comic books, but they were books of drawings and cartoons. B. Kleban in the 70s did several books. One was called Never Eat Anything Bigger Than Your Head, and Tiny Footprints, and these were, his most famous one's probably one called Cats. And these were very popular in the 70s. And the Cats was more kind of mainstream, but the other ones were really kind of like, a lot of them are kind of just bizarre, hilarious, dirty, sexual, probably rated R or X-rated. Some of them, some black and white drawings and.
Like Tijuana Bibles kind of thing?
I don't know the reference. I don't know.
Oh, it's Tijuana Bibles, just like little dirty mini comics, like little like stapled together type shit that people would like pass around.
That sounds. I'll check that out.
Check out Tijuana. You would I feel like you would dig, because they would skirt around copyright law, so it'd be like fucked up Batman comics and stuff like that.
It'd be like parody comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you would like.
These were really out there. Like he'd have. I remember one comic. It was one cartoon. It just said it was just this really heavy guy sitting on another guy, covering his whole body, and it just says, "Dirty fat person sits on president's face." And it was so great.
You could
It was
republish
just
that now and be a fucking
No big
hero.
deal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It was this timeless thing about, the regular person, striking back at authority on such a simple level,
Right.
and
That's
it
really
works, So he did all. It was just really, really. It was almost like maybe more like a more bizarre and intellectual version of The Far Side. I could say.
I was going to say, from your book, there's a Far Side kind of element to it, right?
So B. Kleban is really cool stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, really cool.
That's great.
Cool. Pete, do you have an answer for this one?
Well, it's funny that you're talking because like my comic book shop was also a baseball card place.
Of course.
What was great for me was baseball cards were so much more popular that I would go in and trade my baseball cards that I got from my dad for comics, and I had to like hide them.
And your dad was like, "Hold on to this for the rest of your
You're
life."
like, yeah,
and you were
yeah.
like, "I'm going to swap this tomorrow for literally any comic book."
yeah.
Wow.
But it worked
And
out
that's when
great
you've
for
been
me.
estranged from your father. since
Yeah,
then.
yeah, he hates me.
Yeah,
But
so that
you know,
affects your
I
life.
found love in comics, so
Hey,
that's all that matters.
The ultimate father is a comic book.
yeah.
That's the way I've
He
lived.
won't hit you.
You mean a
Well-
comic book won't?
Yeah,
Wait,
that's
what?
right.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. All right. I don't want to get into it.
No, we could get into it later.
Yeah, should we get into it?
No, let's
How
get
much
into it.
time do we have here?
Let's talk about Hank Pym.
years? We got a couple of years, right? We can get into this?
Yeah, let's definitely get into
Great.
this. We've all been leading up to this.
Cool. I think that was a great question. We can get another question. You, sir, over here. What's your name? What's your question?
Named Caesar, and my question, well, actually, this is a question I've been asking since February, the month of love.
Ooh, what a history to this question.
Shit.
Yeah,
Go
Long
down,
anyway.
guys.
It's almost next February.
I'm not going to wait that long. Okay, so I knew a performer once who bragged that he loved Batman so much, he'd bend over and blow the bat down, so to speak. With
Okay.
that said,
Wait, you're talking about fucking
What
Batman?
is happening right now?
well,
Someone's
blow the
gonna
bat
fuck
down
up.
wasn't
Let's
me.
do it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I can predict your question, and yes, the answer.
The answer is yes.
Okay, wait. What would you do for your favorite superhero?
What would I do? And
do for
it
him?
sounds like you mean sexually.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you specifically mean sexually?
Not necessarily.
Caesar's
is
been
what-
drinking.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been drinking.
What would you do for
Like
a
a-
Klondike bar or your favorite superhero?
What would you do like as a favor, or you mean like literally?
Well, like, what am I getting out of it? I guess is the
Yeah.
question. Like, do I get to like have their gear, their powers, or some shit, or
No.
Nothing.
Just
like,
to say
Your favorite
thanks?
comic book character walks
Back
up
up.
to you and says, "Hey, I need a favor." And
Yeah.
What are you willing to do?
I feel like
I just want to say I appreciate you taking this, Donnie, because that's not how favors work.
yeah, I feel like I do a lot for superheroes currently.
Yeah,
I feel
no,
like
you're doing a lot.
Yeah, I feel like I do a lot for them. As for Batman. Batman's a billionaire who beats up poor people in the street, so he can get fucked. And do a fucking thing for
That's
Batman.
the real lesson: is Batman can get fucked by this person.
That he will.
Yeah.
He will.
Do you guys have an answer?
Yeah. How would you guys fuck Batman?
That's a great question.
How would I fuck Batman? I'd kill his parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then he's really fucked.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I
really
think
fun.
it's not killing his parents. Really,
Hey.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, then he's just a rich asshole.
Yeah.
The ultimate punishment. I feel like with Batman, you have to lay out a little mystery. He loves a little.
he is
wants
a
to be
detective.
little coy.
Yeah.
You don't want to be
Play-
too easy.
You want him to let his bat dick out.
Yeah, exactly. It's on him.
You're not fucking better than that joke. I don't think you're better than that joke.
His utility belt, it has a little flap.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's forward this to Joel Schumacher. He could answer this question.
That's what that entire movie
super
was
easy.
about.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
I think
for
we
this
crushed
question.
that question. I think we
answered
fucking
that
nailed
Yeah,
correctly.
Pete, real quick, how would you fuck Batman?
Yeah.
I take him on a date.
The
I wine him
Punisher?
and dine him,
Oh, so you wouldn't fuck him, you just romance him.
Yeah, I would, we'd go
Would
see
I?
a movie, but nobody would die, hopefully.
I feel like canonically Bruce Wayne's not overly fond of theater dates.
Yeah, he's not a movie guy at this point.
No.
Absolutely.
You never
Great
see-
question.
Yeah. Great question.
Great
Great
one.
question.
Do we have another question from
Yes.
somebody? You,
Yeah.
sir.
There's another one in
What's
the
your
back.
name? What's your question?
All right, I'm John. One of my favorite parts of American Splendor was Toby talking about Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Because obviously, nerd back then, negative connotation, good people being tarred with that brush, as it were. In today's society, with, like you say, nerd becoming like a cool thing, geek being a cool thing, is there a space for that kind of movie, or are we just going to be looking at the Joker now?
Oh, fuck.
Well, that's a great question, and I don't know. I mean, I'm probably too old and out of the loop to know if, in some circles, does nerd still mean that, or is there a different word for it now? Where it's because you're right. It was it was meant to be a put down and to try to keep a person down. That's
Right.
how it was used.
And like truly, Revenge of the Nerds was like they saw that title and they were like, "Oh, I know what that means."
Right.
Like now, if you released a movie, it was like it's called Revenge of the Nerds. Everyone would be like,
Yeah,
what does that?
It'd be
what do you
real.
mean?
I mean, it'd be dangerous. I mean, the guy's question was kind of on point, where it's like a Revenge of the Nerds kind of power fantasy film today is the Joker. It's
Yeah.
a cat who gets fucking laughed at and then goes and murders a bunch of people, right?
a really sad state of everything, A,
Yeah.
but also B, what we think outsiders now. Back in Revenge of the Nerds was like, all they wanted was to just be normal. They wanted to play their electric violin and go on a date. And now it's like, Revenge of the Nerds, he murders a bunch of people randomly.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because like I remember I'm 30. I just turned 35, and I think that I'm part of the last generation of people that grew up being like actively made fun of for reading comics and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, like it's changed so much that I don't even know what that. I think it's turned so much to at a certain point. Nerd culture has gotten so. I don't want to say entitled to a certain degree, a certain subsections of it,
that's right.
where the tide has turned so much, or that they have become the oppressors and the gatekeepers of their own culture. Yeah. They've turned into the ogres and the bad guys of Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. Like, I saw this person, they were walking down the street, they're a lot younger than me, and I was like, they were wearing a Batman t-shirt, and I was like, Jim Lee, dude, that's a fucking great Batman. And they were like, what? And I was like, I wanted to beat the shit out of them.
So you're the bad guy in that story. Yeah, you're the bad guy. Yeah.
I went
not
from
go the
getting
direction.
beat up for that to then wanting to do that.
Yeah, because I remember growing up, like you would, because like wearing Batman shirts and like Star Wars shirts and these kinds of things, you would. That's how you found your family in crowds and stuff.
Yeah.
You would walk on and be like, bro, so like Spawn, like for real Spawn, and that's how you found your friends and stuff. Now and now it's so much. There's so much, I think, but honestly, any subculture that you see in like the punk stuff and the metal scene, all these kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Whenever something that is kind of treasured and becomes a safety net for people who are marginalized, whenever it becomes exposed and expanded upon to the masses, those people who were in it in the beginning tend to turn on it, and it tends to turn volatile until it all settles down. And the great common denominator of all these things is Hot Topic. And once it goes into Hot Topic, and once mothers start buying it, everyone fucking settles down. It's just like, okay, let's not get into fights about fucking Pokemon. And then it gets neutralized.
But I do think comic books have a weird thing where people have been able to retain that ownership despite that mass appeal. Like the fact that you'll see anyone on the street wearing a Thing t-shirt, it's like, well, I have more ownership of that than that person.
Right.
It's like becomes that sort of gradation of the judgment.
Well, the gradation is a great example of it. There's levels to things, right? Like I've been writing Venom for a few years now, and I'm very well known within the readers, people who read comics, as the Venom guy, right?
Yeah.
But like just coming here, just walking over here, I walked past like 9 cats wearing Venom T-shirts who don't know who the fuck I am, and but that's awesome. Like I love that nowadays there are multiple access points to anything,
Right.
you know, and you don't have to be judged by your level of knowledge on a thing, you know. Like it's cool that like Judah knows the kind of fucking underground cool shit that he digs, and he's no less of a fucking, you know, comic book, like a part of the comic book family than we are. And I think that's the kind of shit that we should support. Like, instead of seeing someone wearing a Joker shirt or a Watchmen shirt and being like, who fucking inked that? Like, it's just fucking rad that you found it, man. Like, however you find it, you find it. Unless it's the Big Bang Theory, which is fucking the devil.
Yeah.
That show...
Exactly. We can all unite against that.
That show actively hates you.
Yeah.
Well, it's over. We killed it, so it's fine. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions from anybody? Ooh, another one over here. Let's get it. What is your name and what is your question?
I'm Ronnie. This is for everybody, but especially for Judah. Kind of a Fight Club question, but let's just pretend we're all superheroes or superpowers or whatever.
He wants to fight you.
No. I want to.
Do you want to fucking fight?
I want to ask who you want to fight. They have to be a celebrity, and what's their weakness?
Oh wow!
Oh boy!
Nice.
Well, first of all, if they're a celebrity, they're not going to be good fighters, unless they're actually a fighter.
Yes, it's a celebrity fighter.
There are fighting
That's a problem.
celebrities.
No, I don't think there's anyone a celebrity I want to fight.
You've entered a pacifist.
What's that?
You've entered a pacifist portion of your life.
Well, I think with the amount of intensity I bring, I don't think any of them would. I think they would all back out.
Well, no one's trying to fight the world champ.
That's right. So
yeah,
champion of the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think any of them would do that.
You know what? Like, real lifestyle, like, I don't want to fight nobody. I don't want to fight anybody. Like comic books, though, like I don't know. Like,
Curious.
I feel like I'm not gonna win shit. Like, I was like a kind of a pasty white dude from Austin. Like, I'm not gonna fight anybody. Don't clap for me being pasty.
I feel like it's
Austin. Yeah, hell yeah.
Or it could be
Austin.
People love a
There are absolutely people that I would fight off mic. There's absolutely a big section of yeah.
I'm glad you didn't land on any nouns right then.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any celebrities you would fight?
Oof, that's,
And I think we didn't answer the
Just
other
for
part
fun
of the
though.
question.
Okay, if we're just homies,
Yeah.
it's like a fun, playful fight.
yeah.
Yeah, like a slap.
I feel like I would want to fight Jim Steranko just because I feel like I want to see how strong he is. Just I want to see how bad I get my ass kicked.
Yeah, I feel like he has some old
Dude,
Yeah,
Jim
he's got
Steranko
some
fucks
white-
you
So
up, dude.
I have a quick story about that, actually. I moderated a panel for Jim Steranko at Keystone Comic-Con in Philly
recently.
very recently, and he told this story, which the question that I started off with was like, hey, you helped create Nick Fury. Where did you start with that? And he went all the way back to his childhood and started talking through his childhood, and I think maybe confessed to several murders while he was doing it. I'm not 100% sure. But as part of it, he was like, yeah, and I grabbed this guy used to grab me by the arm just like this, and he reached out and he grabbed my arm, and it hurt so badly.
Dude.
So fuck, you lost a fight to Jim
No,
I
Steranko.
dude.
lost a fight to
I
Jim
said this
Steranko, yeah.
because if you go to Jim Steranko's booth and he gives you the full throttle handshake,
Oh, my
it is a
God.
vice grip. That
Yes.
dude, that dude's gonna outlive all of us.
Here's my theory. I think he's a ghost that came back to life.
Have you guys been watching The Righteous Gemstones?
Yes.
Do you know that's just
Yeah.
Jim
He is,
Steranko?
yeah.
Walter Goggins' character.
He's Baby Billy.
He's Baby Billy.
He's Baby Billy.
There's no way
100%.
that wasn't intentional.
Whoever's doing Jim Steranko's wigs, which is a person's job, is also doing Walton Goggins gigs.
Yeah,
and,
dude.
Wigs in Righteous Gemstones.
All right, I think we kind of
I
answered
just
your
I
question.
think we
Remember an
covered
old
some
joke
real
about-
esoteric
Oh.
parts of the culture. Go ahead.
No, I used to do a line saying one time I beat up Wolverine so bad he applied for a transfer to DC Comics.
Wow.
Amazing.
Excellent. Any more questions real quick? No? Nobody? Okay, then
We
we're going
did
to
it.
give away some Blu-ray DVD sets. That was only 4 questions. But Judah, do you have a favorite question out of those?
You know, there were a lot of great questions.
Sure, lots of them.
One of them was about love and Batman.
Right.
And, I mean, it's hard to top love.
Yeah.
Sir, I think your question about the nerd question was really good.
Yeah.
That was
That's great.
that really had a lot of levels to it.
That's
if I had to go
Cool.
with
Whose
one,
question was that? Over there?
Right here.
John?
John.
All right. Would you like The Flash Season 5, Doom Patrol Season 1, or Supergirl Season 4? Doom Patrol, great choice. Highly
answer.
underrated show. Everybody should check it out. It was
Really great.
superb.
That's a Blu-ray.
Yes, it's a Blu-ray, so don't.
Good luck playing that.
Good luck. We're not giving away Blu-ray players. Donnie, do you have a favorite question?
I go with that dude saying about fucking Batman.
Okay, well, there we go.
Fuck that Batman.
Here we go. What would you like, Flash or Supergirl?
He wants Supergirl.
You got a crush on Supergirl.
You really filled in the gap we were thinking.
And Justin and Pete, do you guys have a choice
Please.
No, please.
No.
of the remaining questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, go
Any-
ahead.
No, you.
Anybody?
You go ahead.
No, you're.
I'm going to get to a gentleman right there.
A gentleman right
Hey,
here. Here you
we
go.
get it, guys.
Here's a Flash set. Kevin, we will get you something special as well. Don't you worry.
The Flash is very fast.
All right. A couple of things before we wrap up here that we should probably plug, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. We do our regular show Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. at the Pit Loft, so definitely come on down. That's totally free, 8 p.m. every single week, as well as the podcast. We actually do a bunch of different podcasts. We have a Riverdale podcast called Riverdale After Dark that is coming back next Wednesday, so definitely check that out.
Yes.
Also, Watchmen Watch, our Watchmen podcast, is gearing up to the show. We're recapping, breaking down every issue of Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' classic comic book series, which has been a lot of fun.
It's very fun.
Very
Nothing
awesome.
fucked up about that. It's great.
So that's enjoyable. Plus other podcasts that you can check out. Pete, what do you want to plug?
Friend us on Facebook so you get to know about the amazing guests we have on our live show.
Follow us on Twitter at Comic Book Live.
Check us out at comicbookclubalive.com for this podcast and more. You can subscribe and comment on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Android, or the app of your choice. Couple of people we want to thank before we go. We want to thank Donnie for being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Judah! We want to thank everybody here at Caveat, but most of all, we want to thank you all. Thanks for coming out. Enjoy Comic-Con. Good night.
Comic book club, nerds, join Alex, Justin, Tony, Bucket. Every Tuesday night, once a week, they'll blow your mind with their comics and sales, and extend their already extended adolescence. At a comic book club, comic book club. Comic book club. They sit on crack bed couches and they